There comes a moment in your life when you realize not everyone is meant to understand you. And that's not your fault. It's not even your responsibility. We live in a world where we're constantly explaining ourselves, why we made a certain decision, why we said no, why we walked away, why we're doing something different. And every time we explain, we hope it will earn us validation. But what if I told you, the more you explain, the less people respect you? Because here's the truth. When you truly know who you are and why you do what you do, you stop needing to explain yourself to everyone. Clarity becomes your compass. And that clarity speaks louder than any justification ever could. People who constantly explain themselves aren't always doing it for understanding. Many times, they're doing it for approval. They want to be validated, accepted, liked. But the more you try to explain yourself, the more you hand over your power. You shift from leading your life to defending it. And leadership was never about defense, it's about direction. Clarity is rooted in purpose. When you're clear about your values, your goals, and your intentions, you don't feel the urge to convince anyone. You don't feel the urge to prove anything. You simply act. And that action, grounded in purpose, earns more trust and respect than any justification ever could. Because people might question your choices, but when they see that your choices are consistent, when they see that your actions align with your words, they begin to trust you, even if they don't understand you. Justification, on the other hand, is reactive. It's a response to doubt, to fear, to insecurity. It's what we do when we haven't fully convinced ourselves, so we try to convince others. But here's the thing. If you're not convinced, they won't be either. People don't follow explanations. They follow clarity. They follow people who are so sure of where they're going that it inspires something in them. And that inspiration doesn't come from defending a decision. It comes from owning it. Clarity creates calm. It brings a stillness to your spirit because you're no longer pulled in 100 directions trying to appease everyone. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. You're being honest with yourself. And that honesty gives you the strength to be misunderstood. Because that's the part no one tells you. Being clear doesn't mean everyone will agree with you. It means you'll have the courage to be at peace when they don't. And it's that peace, that inner alignment that others begin to respect. They might not say it out loud. They might question you, disagree with you, or even judge you. But deep down, people admire someone who doesn't flinch. Someone who stands firm in their choices. Someone who can say, this is what I believe. This is what I'm doing. And I don't need you to get it. The most respected people in the world aren't the ones who explain every move they make. They're the ones who move with such clarity and consistency that they never need to explain at all. Their life becomes the explanation. Their results speak. Their actions align. And when your actions are aligned with your truth, you don't need to say much. You don't need to explain your boundaries, your decisions, or your silence. Because your energy, your presence, your consistency, that says it all. So instead of trying to justify your path to people who were never meant to walk it with you, get clear. Get clear on who you are. Get clear on what matters to you. Get clear on the life you're building. And when that clarity becomes louder than your need to be understood, you'll start noticing something powerful. People start respecting you, even the ones who never agreed with you in the first place. People don't always remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. That's because energy is more powerful than words. Your energy is your silent teacher. It's the invisible force that communicates your confidence, your intention, and your authenticity before you ever open your mouth. You walk into a room and people feel something. That something is what they respond to, whether they're aware of it or not. It's not your resume, it's not your vocabulary, it's your presence. And presence isn't taught, it's built from alignment. When your energy is scattered, anxious, or insecure, no amount of talking can cover it up. You could say all the right things and still be misunderstood. Because people don't listen just with their ears, they listen with their instincts. They pick up on the tone behind your words, the pace of your voice, the way you hold yourself. If your words say, I'm confident, but your energy says, I hope this is enough, people will trust your energy over your words every time, because energy doesn't lie. But when your energy is calm, grounded, and intentional, people naturally feel safer around you. They feel drawn to you. Not because you're loud, not because you're trying to convince them, but because there's something about you that feels solid. That's what real leadership feels like. It's not about who talks the most or who makes the biggest impression. It's about who carries themselves with clarity and purpose. It's about who you become when you don't feel the need to prove anything. The truth is, people learn more by observing you than by listening to you. They watch how you respond under pressure. They notice how you treat others when no one's looking. They feel the difference when you speak from a place of alignment versus a place of performance. And over time, they stop listening to what you say and start following how you live. That's why it's so important to get your inner world in order. You can't fake energy. You can't fake peace. You can't fake purpose. If you're carrying unresolved fear, resentment, or insecurity, it'll leak into your presence, no matter how much you rehearse your words. But when you take the time to do the inner work, to find peace within yourself, to heal, to get clear, that work radiates outward. You won't have to tell people you've changed. There's a reason why some people walk into a room and instantly shift the energy. They don't demand attention, they attract it. They don't speak to be heard, they speak to share. Their energy teaches something deeper than motivation or advice. It teaches presence, and presence is what people remember. This is especially true when you're trying to influence, inspire, or lead. You can have all the strategies in the world, but if your energy doesn't match your message, people won't follow you. Because trust isn't built on how much you know, it's built on how safe people feel around you. And safety comes from congruence. When your energy, your body language, and your message all align, people lean in. They don't even know why, they just know it feels real. So don't waste your breath trying to convince the world. Focus on becoming the kind of person whose presence teaches more than their words ever could. Lead with your energy. Speak only when it adds to the clarity, not when it tries to fix the doubt. And remember, your energy doesn't ask for attention, it earns respect. Without you having to point it out. They feel safer around you. They feel inspired by you. And not because you gave them a lecture, but because you showed them what it looks like to be fully yourself, unapologetically. That's the kind of leadership that sticks. It doesn't manipulate or overpower. It influences through presence, through clarity, and through consistency. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to convince anyone of your value. Because your life already reflects it. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you listen, all of it teaches something deeper than any speech could. Confidence becomes your quiet language. And that language communicates one powerful message. I am enough, as I am. And when you truly believe that, when you embody that, you don't just earn respect, you inspire others to find that same quiet strength within themselves. Not everyone is going to understand you, and that's okay. In fact, that's necessary. Because if everyone did, you'd probably be playing it too safe, too small, too familiar. Growth often looks like walking a path few people recognize. Purpose often feels like speaking a language only your soul understands. And when you're living from that deep, honest place within yourself, there will always be people who don't get it. And they don't have to. The need to be understood is human. We all want to feel seen, heard, accepted. But when you attach your direction of life to someone else's understanding of it, you shrink. You hesitate. You over-explain. You start to doubt your intuition just because someone else can't see what you see. And here's the truth. Not everyone is meant to see what you see because they haven't lived your life. They haven't fought your battles. They haven't felt your calling. And when you realize that being misunderstood isn't a failure but often a sign you're growing, everything changes. You stop trying to explain your vision to people who don't have the capacity to hold it. You stop waiting for the applause before you move, and you start building not from the outside in, but from the inside out. The reality is, your path is yours. Your decisions don't require a group vote. And the more aligned you become with your purpose, the more you'll realize how much noise you were once reacting to. People project their fears, they project their limits. They'll tell you something won't work, not because it can't, but because they've never seen it done. And that's not your burden to carry. Leadership, real leadership, begins the moment you can walk forward without needing everyone to walk with you. It begins when you can stand firm in your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're the only one who understands it right now. Because often what makes sense to the world isn't what brings peace to your soul. And if you choose to chase acceptance instead of alignment, you'll end up living a life that looks good from the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Sometimes you have to be okay with being the misunderstood one. The one who doesn't follow the blueprint, who doesn't stay in the box, who chooses growth over approval. And when you do that, when you stop expecting others to validate your choices, you unlock a different level of freedom. You stop asking for directions from people who've never been where you're going. You stop waiting for permission to become who you already are. Ironically, the more comfortable you become with being misunderstood, the more people start to respect you. Not because you bent to fit in, but because you didn't. Because you stayed true. Because you kept walking. And maybe later, after they see the results, after they watch you become who you said you'd be, they'll understand. Or maybe they won't. Either way, it's not your job to convince them. Your job is to live with conviction, to follow your vision, to trust the quiet voice inside you even when it's drowned out by the noise outside. And the moment you stop needing everyone to understand you, you'll start connecting with the people who do, the ones who see you, get you, and walk beside you, not because they have to, but because they choose to. And those are the people worth waiting for. Silence is often misunderstood. In a world that rewards noise, speed, and constant expression, silence can be seen as weakness, as a lack of confidence or conviction. But the truth is, silence is one of the most powerful forms of strength. It takes a certain level of emotional maturity, discipline, and self-trust to stay quiet when your ego wants to speak. When you realize you no longer need to react to everything, you begin to understand what real power feels like. Silence is not about suppression. It's not about avoiding conflict or hiding your voice. It's about choosing your moment. It's about understanding that not every situation requires your input and not every comment deserves your response. When you're secure within yourself, you don't rush to defend your worth. You don't argue to prove your value. You let your presence speak for itself, and that presence becomes louder than any argument could ever be. And there's a deep kind of wisdom in choosing silence. Because silence says, I know who I am. It says, I'm not here to convince, I'm here to move. When you're silent in moments that would typically trigger a reaction, you take back control. You're no longer playing on someone else's terms. You're setting your own. And in doing so, you maintain your peace, your clarity, and your dignity. Sometimes silence is the only language that makes sense. When people misunderstand you, when they criticize without context, when they project their fears onto your life, the most powerful response is not to engage. Not because you're scared, but because you're grounded. Because you know that arguing with someone who isn't trying to understand is a waste of breath. And because you've learned that peace is more valuable than being right. Silence is also where clarity lives. When you quiet the noise both around you and within you, you begin to hear what truly matters. You hear your own thoughts without the pressure of outside opinions. You feel your intuition guiding you. You see the bigger picture. That kind of internal clarity can't be found in constant conversation. It's found in stillness, in reflection, in solitude. In the people who learn how to sit in silence without fear are the ones who grow the most. Leadership requires this kind of silence. Not passive silence, but intentional silence. The kind that listens before it speaks. The kind that observes before it acts. The kind that doesn't rush to respond because it understands the weight of words. A leader who can hold space without always filling it with noise commands more respect than one who never stops talking. Why? Because people feel the depth behind their words. They know that when this person speaks, it means something. There's also strength in the silence you keep with yourself, the discipline to not overshare. The wisdom to hold something sacred. Not everything needs to be announced. Not every move needs to be explained. Some things are more powerful when they're kept close, when they're nurtured in the quiet, away from the noise. In that quiet, your confidence grows, your conviction deepens, and your energy begins to speak volumes without a single word. So no, silence isn't weakness, it's not absence, it's presence. In its most refined form, it's strength under control, power without the performance. When you can sit in silence without needing to fill it, you become dangerous in the best way. You become someone who doesn't chase respect because you've already earned your own. Next, setting boundaries is one of the most direct ways to communicate self-respect. And the moment you begin to honor your own time, energy, and values, people are forced to do the same. Boundaries are clear, confident, and non-negotiable. They don't require lengthy explanations or emotional justifications. They are statements of identity. They say, this is who I am, and this is what I will or will not accept. And that kind of clarity earns respect far faster than any excuse ever could. Excuses come from a place of fear. They're often made to avoid conflict, disappointment, or rejection. When we make excuses, we're usually trying to soften the truth, to make ourselves more palatable, or to delay discomfort. But in doing so, we actually weaken our position. Excuses don't protect people's feelings. They cloud our message, they create confusion, and over time, people learn to see through them. What they really want, what they actually respect, is truth. And boundaries are truth in action. When you say no without guilt, you send a message, I value my time, I value my peace, I value my energy. That message doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't require over-communication. In fact, the more you feel the need to explain your boundary, the less powerful it becomes. Because boundaries that are rooted in self-worth are simple. They don't bend to please others. They don't change based on someone else's opinion. They are firm, not out of arrogance, but out of self-awareness. People may not like your boundaries, especially if they've benefited from your lack of them. They may push back, they may challenge you, but even when people resist, they respect consistency. And when they see that you're not moving your line just to avoid discomfort, they begin to take you seriously. They may not say it out loud, but they start thinking twice before crossing you again. Excuses, on the other hand, invite negotiation. When you make an excuse, you're opening the door to be questioned. You're inviting the other person to push back, to argue, to persuade. You're saying, I'm not fully sure of this decision, so let me soften it with a story. But boundaries shut that door. They remove the gray area. They don't leave space for debate, and because of that, they're efficient, clean, clear. Leadership, whether personal or professional, demands boundaries. You can't lead if you're constantly explaining yourself and trying to keep everyone happy. You'll burn out, you'll lose direction. But when you lead with boundaries, people understand where you stand. They know your limits, and more importantly, they learn to respect theirs. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. At first, setting boundaries may feel uncomfortable, especially if you're used to being accommodating. But discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It usually means you're doing something new. And the more you choose boundaries over excuses, the more natural it feels to simply speak your truth without softening it. People may not always agree with your boundaries. That's okay. Agreement isn't the goal. Clarity is. And clarity leads to respect. When you're clear about what you allow and what you don't, you stop attracting confusion. You stop inviting chaos. You start attracting people who understand your value and who treat you accordingly. So stop apologizing for choosing yourself. Stop making excuses for protecting your peace.